All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're exploring the mystical world of Kabbalah.
Exciting stuff.
Right. Our listener wants to understand its origins, and we've got this book by Rabbi Philip S. Berg.
Initiation à la Kabbalah.
That's the one, Volume 1. It's perfect for this deep dive because it breaks down even the most complex Kabbalistic ideas. Makes them easy to grasp.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's really amazing how Berg connects Jewish history and mystical thought.
He does a great job. So let's get to it. Where do we even start with the origins of Kabbalah?
Well, one of the earliest texts, and it's a big one for Kabbalah, is the Sefer Yetzirah.
Sefer Yetzirah.
Sometimes it's translated as the Book of Creation, and get this, it's attributed to Abraham, the patriarch.
Wow. So we're talking ancient origins here. What's so special about this book? Why is it so important to Kabbalah?
It's a favorite among Kabbalists because it's so complex and full of hidden meanings. It delves into the creation of the universe using the Hebrew alphabet, numbers, and divine emanations. It's kind of like a blueprint.
A blueprint.
Yeah, for understanding the structure of reality.
Oh, wow. So it's like a decoder ring for the universe.
Exactly.
I can see why that would be intriguing to Kabbalists.
Totally. But while the Sefer Yetzirah is definitely important, the text that's really central to Kabbalah,
The heart of it.
yeah, is the Zohar, which means splendor.
Okay, the Zohar. Now, the book mentions it's a much larger and more profound work.
Oh, yeah.
It's attributed to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai,
Right.
a sage from the Mishnah period.
Uh-huh.
And just for our listener who might not know, the Mishnah is a collection of Jewish oral traditions
Right.
compiled around the 2nd century CE.
Mm-hmm.
So we're jumping ahead a few centuries from Abraham.
We are, yeah. And the Zohar itself, it wasn't written down until much later,
Oh,
around the 13th century, but it's still attributed to Rabbi Shimon,
okay.
which makes him a key figure in the transmission of Kabbalah. The story goes that he received these teachings directly from the prophet Elijah.
That is some lineage. So Rabbi Shimon, he wasn't just like casually interested in Kabbalah.
No, not at all. Berg's book actually tells this incredible story about Rabbi Shimon's dedication to studying Kabbalah. It was so intense that he actually experienced physical suffering.
Really?
Can you imagine that? The pursuit of knowledge being so profound, it affects you physically.
Wow. That is intense. I guess it speaks to the power of these teachings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the level of commitment needed to really delve into them.
You got it. True knowledge, especially when we're talking about the mystical realm, it requires a deep dedication
Yeah.
and a willingness to push beyond your comfort zone. It's not just about reading words in a book, it's about a transformation.
That makes sense. And he was able to pass on this knowledge despite all that, right?
He was.
The book mentions he had 3 key students who continued to spread his teachings.
Yeah, after his death. And that's what ensured the continuity of Kabbalah.
Okay.
It's through these lineages of teachers and students that this ancient wisdom has been preserved and passed down.
So we have those early roots with the Sefer Yetzirah, then the Zohar emerges, and Rabbi Shimon's got this crucial role.
Right.
But when did Kabbalah really start to gain momentum as a movement? When did it truly flourish?
That takes us to the 16th century, to a city called Safed.
Safed.
It's in the Galilee region of what is now Israel.
Okay.
And this period, it's known as the Golden Age of Safed. It was a time of incredible spiritual and intellectual revival for Kabbalah.
Safed. Why? What was so special about that place and time?
Well, remember that just a few decades before this, in 1492, Jews were expelled from Spain.
Right.
And many of them, they found refuge in the Holy Land.
Yeah.
Safed became a center for Jewish learning and mysticism.
So there's this backdrop of upheaval and displacement.
Exactly.
I imagine there was a longing for meaning and connection
There was.
in the face of all that change.
Absolutely. And that longing, it was intensified because they were in the Holy Land.
Of course.
It fueled messianic hopes. There was this powerful sense that being back in their ancestral homeland, it signaled the coming of the Messiah.
So it wasn't just a coincidence that Kabbalah became so popular in Safed.
Not at all.
It was tied to these major historical events and this deep, deep yearning for redemption.
Exactly. Kabbalah, with its focus on spiritual transformation, the end of exile, and the coming of a messianic age, it resonated so deeply with the hopes and anxieties of the time.
I see.
And that's where things get really interesting, because during this golden age in Safed, some incredibly influential figures emerged.
Okay.
They really shaped the course of Kabbalah.
Okay. So we've got this incredible resurgence of Kabbalah happening in Safed. Who are some of the key figures during this golden age?
Berg highlights three main ones. First, there's Rabbi Salomon Alkabetz.
Alkabetz.
He wrote, or Yakar. His work was important because he connected Kabbalah to, like, the daily lives of Jewish people.
Okay.
Through prayer and ritual.
So he was trying to make Kabbalah more practical.
Yeah, more accessible. He really believed that Kabbalah wasn't just about these abstract ideas. It was about finding, the divine in the everyday, in the mundane experiences of life.
And then there's Rabbi Isaac Luria. He seems like kind of a rock star, at least based on the book.
Oh, yeah. Incredibly charismatic.
Yeah.
Luria, he developed his own system of Kabbalah, which attracted a huge following. He was known for his mystical experiences and his attempts to bring about the Messiah's arrival sooner.
Wow.
Berg actually shares the story about Luria's journey to find the Messiah.
Really?
Yeah, it shows just how intense those messianic expectations were back then.
It's so interesting how those messianic expectations were tied to the Kabbalah movement in Safed.
Yeah.
It makes me think about how people, especially during times of uncertainty or upheaval, they often turn to spirituality and mysticism for comfort and meaning.
That's a great point. And it's something we still see today, right?
Absolutely.
People are still searching for meaning, searching for connection to something bigger than themselves, especially now with so many global challenges.
So we've got Alkabetz connecting Kabbalah to daily life, Luria with his charisma and focus on the Messiah.
Right.
Who's the third figure?
That would be Rabbi Moshe Cordovero.
Okay.
Now, unlike Luria, whose teachings were very experiential and mystical,
Uh-huh.
Cordovero focused on systematizing Kabbalah.
Systematize.
The more structured, intellectual approach to studying these ideas.
So he was trying to bring order to what's often seen as, mysterious and esoteric.
Exactly. His main work, Pardes Rimonim, which translates to Orchard of Pomegranates.
Orchard of Pomegranates.
Is considered a foundational text for understanding Kabbalah. It's an attempt to take centuries of mystical thought and create a coherent system.
It's all fascinating. But I have to admit, I'm still not totally clear on what Kabbalah actually is like at its core.
Sure.
We've talked about the texts, the key figures, but what are the core concepts? What are Kabbalists trying to understand?
Great question. At its heart, Kabbalah is a mystical tradition, seeking to understand the nature of God, the creation of the universe, and our place in it. It's about uncovering those hidden connections between the physical and spiritual realms.
So it's not just about studying ancient texts or following certain rituals. It's about seeking a deeper understanding of reality itself.
Absolutely. And Kabbalists believe that this kind of understanding, you can't get there through logic or reason alone. It requires tapping into a different way of knowing, like a mystical way of seeing the world.
How do they do that? What tools or practices do Kabbalists use to access this mystical knowledge?
Well, they use a lot of different methods: meditation, contemplation, and of course studying those sacred texts like the Sefer Yetzirah and the Zohar. Remember we talked about the Sefer Yetzirah and how it uses
the Hebrew alphabet.
Yeah, the Hebrew alphabet and numbers to try and understand creation.
Right, at the decoder ring.
That's just one example of how Kabbalists use symbolism and allegory. They're trying to unlock deeper meanings. They believe these symbols.
Yeah.
They aren't arbitrary. They actually contain profound truths about, the nature of reality.
So it's like this hidden language you need to learn to decipher the secrets of the universe.
You could say that. And the Zohar, it's full of this symbolism and allegory. Kabbalists spend years studying it, interpreting it, looking for those hidden connections.
Wow, no wonder Rabbi Shimon had physical discomfort from all that studying.
Yeah.
It sounds so intense.
It definitely is. But what's really interesting is that Kabbalah isn't just about the intellectual understanding. It's about experiencing a personal transformation. It's about connecting to that divine spark within yourself.
So you can't just read about it. You have to actually live it, put it into practice.
Exactly. Kabbalah teaches that through specific practices, specific ways of living, we can connect more deeply with the divine and, achieve spiritual enlightenment. We can align ourselves with that divine flow of the universe.
Okay, so there's like a practical dimension to it, maybe even an ethical dimension.
Yeah, for sure.
What kind of practices are we talking about?
Well, one of the most central concepts in Kabbalah is tikkun olam.
Tikkun olam.
Which means repairing the world.
I've heard that phrase, but what does it really mean?
It's a beautiful idea that emphasizes our responsibility to, make the world a better place. Kabbalah teaches that the world is in a state of spiritual brokenness.
I see.
And it's our job to help mend it.
How?
Through acts of kindness, compassion, justice.
So it's not just about personal spiritual growth. It's about actively trying to make a positive impact on the world.
Yes. And it doesn't have to be grand gestures or heroic acts. It's about those small, everyday choices. Every little act of kindness, every moment of connection,
Yeah.
it can contribute to tikkun olam.
That makes it feel more doable, like anyone can participate.
Exactly. Kabbalah isn't meant to be exclusive.
Right.
It's a path open to everyone.
So if someone listening is really intrigued by all of this, how would they even begin?
Well, it depends on your learning style, what you prefer.
Sure.
There are so many books, online resources, even classes.
Right.
I think the most important thing is to approach Kabbalah with an open mind and a sincere heart.
That's great advice for really anything new. Be open, be curious, be willing to learn.
Exactly. And remember, Kabbalah is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
It's about that continuous learning, growth, and transformation. It's about uncovering that hidden wisdom that's always been inside you.
That is such a powerful thought. I'm honestly feeling inspired to delve deeper into this world. It's incredible how Kabbalah brings together history, spirituality, practical wisdom, all of it.
It really is a remarkable tradition, and as we've been saying, understanding its historical context can help us appreciate, how relevant these teachings are today.
I completely agree. What a fascinating deep dive into Kabbalah. I'm so glad we got to explore it together. One of the things that keeps coming up for me is this idea of personal transformation. Is that a central theme in Kabbalah?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about acquiring knowledge, it's about using that knowledge to actually transform yourself,
Right.
connect with your inner divinity.
So it's about inner work, applying those teachings,
Yeah.
not just studying the texts and the concept.
Exactly. Kabbalah, it gives you a framework to understand, like your thoughts, your emotions,
Yeah.
your behavior. It helps you see patterns that might be holding you back, and it gives you the tools to overcome them, like a spiritual roadmap.
Okay, a roadmap. I like that. But a roadmap suggests there's a destination. What's the end goal? What are you working toward in Kabbalah?
That's a great question. I think the ultimate goal is to reach spiritual enlightenment, to really realize that connection to the divine, but it's not like a finish line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's an ongoing process, that continual growth and transformation.
It sounds both challenging and incredibly rewarding. To think that these ancient teachings could offer a path to personal fulfillment
Yeah.
and spiritual awakening in the modern world.
It really is amazing. And one of the things I find most beautiful about Kabbalah is the emphasis on interconnectedness.
Interconnectedness, what do you mean by that?
Well, Kabbalah teaches that we're not just these isolated individuals. We're all part of this larger web of life, right?
Right.
Our actions, our choices, they have an impact far beyond ourselves. They affect the world around us, the people in our lives, even the spiritual fabric of reality.
So it's recognizing our responsibility, not just to ourselves, but to everyone and everything.
Exactly. Kabbalah encourages us to, live with intention, to act with compassion and awareness. Our choices matter. It's about recognizing the divine spark, not just in ourselves, but in everyone.
It's incredible that a tradition that's been around for centuries
I know.
can still offer such relevant, timeless wisdom.
It speaks to the power of those teachings, how they've adapted and evolved.
I totally agree. For anyone listening who is now intrigued by Kabbalah,
Yeah.
what would you say? What encouragement would you give them to explore further?
Just dive in. There's so much to discover.
That's great. It's been an amazing journey exploring Kabbalah with you today.
My pleasure.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface.
It's a fascinating surface, though.
It really is. And to our listener, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Kabbalah. We hope it was insightful and maybe even inspired you to learn more. Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep the conversation going.